And he joins us every Tuesday and Thursday here. Now he joins us via Skype from his undisclosed bunker. Good morning, Tony Messenger.
Good morning, McGraw. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for checking in. How shocked were you that this Cole County judge upended this bill yesterday?
Well, I wasn't super shocked, but I was definitely disappointed. When the legislature decided to set a separate standard for St. Louis County than the rest of the state, that was worrisome. I was concerned about that. I didn't like it from the beginning. I thought they should have dropped the entire state to 15%. The old Max Creek law, which had limited revenue from traffic fines to 30%, was a statewide law that applied the same across, no matter where you lived. And so I'm a little concerned that the judge might have gotten it right. That being said, Senator Eric Schmidt makes the point that there are a lot of laws on the books in Missouri that allow one county or a group of counties or cities of a certain population to have rules and or laws that are different than others. So it's not that unusual to have what they refer to in the legislature as a special law. But because this one sets a separate standard for the county and the rest of the state, I do think at the very beginning it was put in jeopardy, in legal jeopardy. I think Attorney General Chris Koster will appeal. I think there's at least a reasonable chance that the law will be upheld on appeal. But it being overturned is a problem. The good thing about it is two things. One, it re-energizes the debate so that everybody can realize what a horrible situation the status quo is that the municipalities fought for. And two, this is the most interesting thing to me. Last week we talked about the Supreme Court and its upcoming decision. Here's the deal. If the Supreme Court does what it should do, if the Supreme Court exercises its constitutionally required supervisory power over the municipal courts, then SB 5 is completely unnecessary anyway, because the Supreme Court has the power to consolidate all the courts to basically create the situation that the incentives for abuse no longer exist, and SB 5 would cease to be necessary anyway, because the municipal courts in St. Louis County, most of them, would no longer exist in their current operating fashion.
What happens now is everything's chaos. The law doesn't exist. Do the muni courts go back to the way things used to be, or what happens now?
Well, if the muni courts have a heart, no, they don't. If the muni courts have been paying attention and aren't these selfish, scofflaw, unconstitutional courts that they have proven to be, then they will act in concert with SB 5, realizing that that's the will of the people overwhelmingly, and find a way to work with the legislature to adjust it so that it's more constitutionally sound. I don't expect that to happen. I expect chaos to rule, because most of those municipalities don't believe they answer to anybody, and they're going to go ahead and put the speed cameras up and tell their cops to go back out and start writing tickets. And I think it's possible that chaos will ensue. The reality, though, is they're being watched now. They're being watched in a significant way by the Justice Department, by Arch City defenders, by media, local and national, and they're not going to get away with it. Again, to me, it puts all eyes on the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court exercises its supervisory power, then the courts will completely change the standard of how they operate. And most of the municipal courts, including almost everyone that was involved in this lawsuit, will no longer have the ability to operate in an unconstitutional fashion. Their courts will either dissolve naturally, or the court will force them to consolidate in some meaningful way.
Tony Messenger with us, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist, talking about this judge's ruling yesterday that threw out this muni courts reform bill. What about, quickly, Tony, the Justice Department in Washington, right? They cut a deal with Ferguson and also said, hey, all these other courts, we're coming after you next. This judge did this under that sort of world as well, where the Justice Department in Washington said, watch out, we're coming.
This is a lot of people have hope that the Justice Department will ultimately be the force that comes in and creates change. I'm not convinced they will. The Justice Department, while the consent decree in Ferguson is an excellent start, and while the consent decree in Ferguson warns of coming into other counties, the Justice Department, according to those who have been involved in conversations with them, have not yet taken steps toward taking their investigation countywide.
Right.
There are not any signs yet that the Justice Department has the rest of St. Louis County on its radar screen. And so I wouldn't put a lot of faith in that. The next move right now is clearly, first of all, I think Attorney General Koster has to appeal. And then next, we wait for the Supreme Court the Supreme Court's going to issue some sort of ruling on municipal courts. And I think at the very least, they're going to change the standard. So, for instance, Sam Alton, who was one of the attorneys who brought this lawsuit against SB 5, is a prosecutor in one place. He's a defense attorney in another place. He's a judge in another place. This is part of the conflict of interest that exists. Right. This is a money-making game for a select group of municipal attorneys. So the Supreme Court, if it follows the working group recommendations, as weak as they were, will at least fix that problem.
Yeah.
And that will cause some courts to have difficulty operating. It will at least change some of the conflict of interest. So there is going to be reform. It's going to happen. And here's the deal. Worst case scenario, this adds to the argument that St. Louis City and St. Louis County and residents all over the region are having about the need to consolidate not just the courts, but all of these multiple municipalities, this incredibly fractured government that we have. If the legislature can't properly fix it, we're going to have to find a way to fix it ourselves.
Good point. Tony Messenger, St. Louis Post-Dispatch columnist every Tuesday, Thursday here. Tony, have a good week. Thanks for checking in.
Hey, go USA tonight.
All right. There you go. STLtoday.com. You can read Tony Messenger 4 days a week, 826, Big 550, KTRS. Let me tell you